I hear you 2 seconds later.
Do you hear me counting 2 seconds later too?
Well, when I say 4, you're on 2.
2? Okay, that is really weird because I'm simultaneous
4.
with you.
And then, so what I do is when I set up the recordings and I pair them up, I put them 1 second apart. I figure.
Oh, okay. That kind of
because you're hearing me 2 seconds later too. I assume.
Well, when we clap, when we clap, I am hearing you right on me.
Oh, okay.
I mean, to my ears, we are clapping simultaneously. Like a lot of times, I don't even hear your clap.
Okay, but you're hearing me 1 second later, and then I'm hearing you 1 second later after that.
After that. Right. That's what I think is going on. So,
all right. Well,
that's
regardless. Hey, folks, welcome to a podcast about Catholic things. This is Eric, the ambassador of common sense, and I'm here with
Dan, the ambassador of nonsense. Welcome, folks.
And it's I feel, you ever have one of those days where you think you missed a day? I feel that especially now. Because I came home from work and I like passed out on the couch, and Thomas comes down and he's waking me up, but I can't really figure out why. I just know he's waking me up, and I look at my phone and it says 8:30, and I'm like, criminy, I'm going to be late for work.
I think at 8:30 a.m.
Why is he waiting? And it's just the right time because it's getting dark out. So it's, the lighting is right. And, then I thought, wait a minute, yesterday was Friday. It's Saturday. I can go back to sleep. And then, I thought, wait a minute. And Thomas the whole time is talking, but all I'm hearing is wah, 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 wah. He just keeps talking, but I still can't figure out what day it is. Finally, I realize it's Friday night right now. I do not get a whole extra day to do. I'm doing this job at work, this project at work, and I'm crunching for time, and I'm trying to get as much done before the weekend starts. I thought, I get a whole extra day to work on this. But no, you don't. Whatever I got done today is done. And
that's it.
And I got to call Danny because I forgot we're supposed to record. So I have to wake up and then I'm reading through your text messages and I see the zombie dust again. See, you first texted me that while I was at work, and I'm working on this project, and you said something like, I've got zombie dust and Centennial. And I'm like, good for you, Danny. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I've got to look up those other beers you have, because what I did was I took the picture, and just so that everybody knows what we're talking about, I had lined up beers for the week out like 14 weeks or something like that, and then during our hiatus that we weren't recording, I ended up drinking all of mine. But I had bought them and paired them up, so and you saved them. So when you sent me that picture, though, I took the picture today to the liquor store. Is like, you can't go in and browse. Instead, you have to tell them what you want outside on the sidewalk. And then, it's kind of stupid, isn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway, I just handed them my phone. I said, well, any of these that you have, I want a pack of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were able to get 5 of the 8. I didn't bother telling them the ones that, wouldn't be on the list anyway. Cause
just go ahead and drink them.
They got, exactly. So they got 5 of the 8. 3 of them were the ones we've already had. The Gumball Head, the Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale, and the what's the other one that we had? The Busted Knuckle. And then they also had Centennial, which everybody always has that, and Zombie Dust. I kind of think that Unveiled, that's disappeared from shelves everywhere.
Maybe?
Either seasonal, or I have to look up and see if maybe they didn't quite make it as a brewery or something.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, you might have like a collector's item there.
Probably our fault.
Of course,
we didn't do them as the beer of the week, and they went under because Because I put the beer of the week in the beginning, like on the website and linked to it and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Despite me fighting the whole thing from the start, I take it serious. And I make it prominent on the website. But this week, as I said, we have Zombie Dust.
Yep, Zombie Dust, brewed by Three Floyds in Munster, Indiana. And we had another Three Floyds beer, was it last week or the week before? The Gumball Head is also a Three Floyds.
Oh, okay.
But Zombie Dust is, they call it an undead pale ale. It's actually an American pale ale. And the art on it is drawn by comic book artist Tim Seeley.
Yeah, it looks kind of scary.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like a zombie. Well, it looks more like an orc.
Yeah, like an orc king kind of a thing. Yeah, I agree.
I have no idea. I'll bet you're tasting something totally different than what I'm tasting, because that beer sat in Dad's mudroom in a lockbox for a year.
That's 6 months. How long was our...
But it sat through the summer, didn't it? And the winter, really.
That's true.
So it got hot and cold and hot and cold, and it probably doesn't taste anything.
Well, how does it taste?
I don't know. It tastes like...
It should taste like a little bit higher end American beer, actually. I mean, it's an American pale ale style.
A little bit sour, a little bit bitter.
Okay.
Maybe it's supposed to taste like that.
I don't think the sour... The sour might actually be some of sitting through hot and cold.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste sour to me.
Okay. Well, I'll still drink it.
Okay. Well, anyway.
Okay, on to the subject. Thee, thy, and thou.
Yeah, in prayers.
You brought those up. I don't know what research you've done, but I just looked into the history. I just picked one of the words and looked into the history and kind of how it developed. And it goes back to 13th century. That's when people used it commonly.
It's like Old English stuff.
Right.
Not old, middle. Technically, I think it's Middle English, but yeah, it's like way back English stuff. It's certainly it's an archaic use of English, and so the question really, and the reason it's a Catholic thing, isn't so much the question of the pronouns themselves, but we've got kind of a modern trend. I wouldn't say a push, because there's nobody who's like real belligerent about it or anything like that, but you've got people who insist whenever they say traditional prayers like the Our Father or the Hail Mary, replacing all of the these and nows with yours and yous. They'll say, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you, or Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name, and so forth. And so it's not a deep Catholic question, but it's one of those things that you hear and then people have different opinions about it. And I just kind of wanted to bring it up at some point in a podcast. Now, I don't think there's enough material there to carry this as a very long podcast. So this might end up being a short podcast, but that's okay.
Okay.
You can get back to your sleep. Actually, you know what? You're probably up for the night now. You won't get any more sleep tonight.
I'm going to fool around with I set up some security cameras, and there's I can't figure out how to get them on my phone, even though they are online, and it's supposed to, I was messing with it, and I have it set up to give me a little click when there's movement. So now I'm getting a click every 10 seconds because there are moths.
For squirrels and stuff?
Gathering where the lights are.
At the light.
And I guess it's not even a normal light. It's a light that I can't see, but is very visible in the camera, in the video. You know what I mean?
Oh, they're gathering to the camera itself. It's okay.
That's what it
You're
looks
not talking like a porch light or something. Okay, all right. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. It might be a like an IR light or something like that.
It looks red in the thing, but they're little LEDs that kind of neat.
All right. Well, that is neat. I hope you can figure out your moth problem. I thought you were talking about a porch light, and I was going to say a lot of times, depending on the software, those things, you can like identify zones to say ignore any movement in this zone.
Yeah, I do. And I've got the zone.
But if they're flying up, if they're flying up to the camera itself, that's the whole thing.
Geez.
You can't ignore the whole screen. Okay,
right. I got to figure out a way around that.
All right. Well, good luck with that. All right. So thee and thy. So you said you did a little bit of research after I brought the topic up. I'm curious. First of all, let me just get a quick opinion from you. Do you have an opinion? Is it a good thing to should we move our prayers forward and get out of the past and do the replacement? Should we maintain thee, thou, thy language in new prayers that we develop going forward? Or is it one of those things that just doesn't matter at all? And there's no spiritual or prayer benefit either way.
I don't have a strong opinion. I have always been a thee, thou person in prayer, just because of I'm a writer, so I understand language and I understand using certain words to give your speech or writing a sense, a kind of a backdrop to make it sound more like something,
a flavor, right?
Colloquial language is just one part of it. But let's see, I guess it was 20 years ago when I was teaching my kids to pray and we're, saying the rosary, I wanted them to kind of understand the words that they were using. So aside from teaching them the words and going over them, this is what that means. Because when they would say the prayers, they would take clumps of words and make it all one word. And I thought, they don't even know what they're saying. So
I know.
I used you and your for a little while, and now the habit itself is kind of like it'll go back and forth. If I'm saying a rosary in 1 decade, I might use one or the other without knowing.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So I don't have a strong opinion, but I
notice I do that with like Holy Spirit and Holy Ghost.
Yeah, me too.
That kind of thing,
Mom's really into calling it one of them, and I don't even remember which one.
She's really into calling it the Holy Ghost.
Okay.
Which it's kind of interesting. It's like the difference is it's basically German versus Latin. So Latin is Spiritus Sanctus. So sancta means holy. It's where we get the word saint. It's where we get the word sanctity, sanctification, and so forth. And spiritus, of course, Latin for spirit. In German, it's I think it's Heiliger Geist, but Geist is ghost.
Oh, okay.
And that's and English itself is a German language, and that'll actually come into our conversation later. And that's where in a more traditional English translations of the prayers and English habits of speaking the prayers, we commonly would have said Holy Ghost.
Okay.
Because that's from our linguistic roots. Why Mom particularly thinks the one is better than the other, I don't know. It's kind of weird for me because I'm a big believer in praying in Latin, much to my family's chagrin. And sometimes I even insist on saying the prayer before meals in Latin, and they all like roll their eyes and stuff.
Yeah.
But as well, they probably should, I guess. I read that into your so I'm thinking, well, if Latin is the linguistic source of the prayers of the church, then we ought to be saying spirit instead of ghost. But we've got this word holy. Even if we say Holy Spirit, the word holy actually comes from the German, not from any Latin. So yeah, it's a 6-1 for me.
It's it seems like the generation above ours, whatever they grew up with, that was the perfect point in time. Whatever traditions they had, those were the ones that should never be moved away from.
That's the way to do it.
A lot of people get that way, and I kind of purposely try not to be that way. Mm-hmm. But I guess I am sort of that way on certain things, like the whole move to using cell phones to text people and stuff like that. I fought that like a devil for a long time. I know. I just wouldn't get a phone.
In fact, I remember getting a text message from you. It's like one of the first times I actually got a text message from you. And I had to look at it 3 times. I kept thinking, oh, Vicky must have sent it.
Yeah. Well,
I forget what it was, but
I was forced to get a phone so that my bosses could reach me at any point.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And they weren't even my bosses back then. We had, they had agreed to use my company for certain things, and they they needed to be able to get a hold of me at any time. And
they were clients then, or customers, not bosses at the time. Yeah.
Right. So, but now that I'm in it, I'm like, all right, I'm going to stop fighting this and just kind of go with it.
Yeah. Well, that's sometimes what you got to do. And, that's, I guess it kind of makes sense to do that in language as well. Now, I'll lead with my wife's position, and I'll give her props because she actually did study linguistics in school prior to her deciding to become an audiologist. She did a lot of German in high school, and then when she got into college, she thought, "Oh, I want to be a German teacher." That's what she,
So does she speak German?
Well, she did. She's lost a lot of it, but she spent a summer in Germany as an exchange student. And when she came back, how I don't know how much you've done in terms of other languages, whether you had to take Spanish in high school or anything like that. But, we think in English.
I never passed a single year of another language.
Okay. Well, there's a point in a language where you're nearly fluent, but you're still thinking in your own language and then translating it, even if you're doing it real fast, into the other language.
Yeah.
Well, when she came back from Germany at the end of that summer, and her host family, part of the foreign exchange program, they weren't allowed to speak English even though they knew it. When she came back from Germany and started getting back into speaking English to people, she was thinking in German and translating to English at first.
Really?
So that's how well she knew it at one time. Yeah.
I worked with this guy. He was around 18 from the Philippines. And he had been in America for not real long, maybe around a year. He still had a pretty strong accent, but I asked him, I said, when you hear me talk, do you have to translate it into English in your head before you can think about it? Do you think in Filipino? He said, yes, I do. He said everything.
Wow.
Or when I talk, I still have to translate it first and then say it. And he was he was a young kid. He was like 19 or 20. And I was kind of surprised at that.
Yeah.
But
there's people who
he
eventually get to
something
where they can
about foreigners and the way they say the word beach. And he said, say beach. I said beach. He said, now how come when you say it, it sounds like a place with sand, but no matter what, if I try to say beach, it sounds like I'm saying a cuss word.
Did it sound like that?
Yeah. Sounds like he was saying B-I. It sounds like he was saying B-I with a accent. Beach.
Is it possibly because he was putting too much, he was leading the CH with a little bit of a T, and that was is it possible that it wasn't the vowel that was causing that impression, but the way he was saying the CH?
I don't think so. It was the way he pronounced the E.
Okay.
And
that is interesting.
It sounded more nasal. But I started thinking, if a Latina says beach, it sounds like he's saying the B-I word.
Mm-hmm. That is weird. Yeah.
How do we get onto this?
We were talking about linguistics. So anyway, she was going to be a teacher, and she actually did take linguistics classes. Had to, there was like one class where they had to do an analysis of Swahili, written stuff without actually knowing the language. Various things like that. So anyway, her perspective, I give a little bit of weight to, and her perspective on the whole language thing, the thee, thy, thou, is that, language changes and you just go with the change. However, the traditional prayers, as she learned them, and as we taught the kids, we just continue to use them as we know them because that's convenient and that's the pattern of speaking that we have used and associated with the thoughts of the prayer with and so forth. So it's not like she's out changing the, hallowed be your name, but at the same time, she sees no value in composing new prayers with thee, thy, thou, because we just don't use that language anymore, and there's no point in doing it. So that's her perspective. Now, I have a different perspective, and it took me a little bit of thinking about this to come up with this. And believe it or not, there's actually a John Wayne movie that put me onto this, and I can't even. I think I do remember
Angel and the Bad
Man.
It is.
Oh, you actually know it. Okay, so here's the point. First, before we talk about that movie, I'm going to give what has usually been what I hear other people say when they are trying to promote the preservation of the traditional language. Yeah. Usually what they say is something along the lines of, this language and its use creates a sort of linguistic barrier, a sort of, it puts the mode of the feeling of the language, kind of like you were saying as a writer, into a level that we're engaging in something a little bit more here. We're addressing somebody a little bit higher. We're entering into a sort of a court, so to speak, and we should preserve that. Now, here's where this movie got me to realizing that's actually not only correct, it's actually the opposite of correct, and furthermore, because of the reality, because of the opposite of that argument is really why we should continue to preserve this language and how we can use this language if we internalize it to enter into a deeper spirituality. So the movie, as you pointed out, Angel and the Bad Man, I don't know how many of our listeners might have seen this movie, but there's a part in the movie where John Wayne, bad guy, kind of falls in with this family, and there's this woman that he's taken a little bit of a shine to. And this family is kind of odd and backwards in a way. It would be kind of like, if somebody today was taken in by like an Amish family. I think, they might be Quakers. They're certainly not Shakers, but they might be Quakers. That makes sense. So Society of Friends. And they use a little bit of this anachronistic language among themselves. In the time, the setting of the movie, people didn't speak that way anymore, but they kind of did. But there was a understanding that the term thee was kind of reserved for a more intimate sort of exchange. Mm-hmm. To address somebody in the second person, normally they would say you, unless there was a reasonable expectation of close familiarity and so forth. And there's one part in the movie where the woman, just says thee to John Wayne and he kind of says what? And she says just thee. And she's inviting him into that kind of familiarity. I'm making it sound like a trashy scene. It's not, okay?
Right.
It's worth going and watching the movie, maybe. But
I forgot all about that part. I was thinking of the part when it was explained to him, because he said he's telling the kid to do something, I think, or he's telling her to do something, and finally he says, "Will thou get me my bags?" or something like that. And the kid, the kid smiles and laughs and says, "Good thing I'm not a tattletale," and runs away. And it's explained to him that language is reserved for loved ones or close people who are very close to each other. And then, and then later on she says thee, and I remember that part now.
Right. So anyway, here's the thing. So I got to thinking about that, and there's two other languages that I know a tiny bit about. And these languages still even today preserve this sense of when you have a second person pronoun, when you're talking to somebody and addressing them as a pronoun, the way you do that depends on the nature of your relationship with them. And in both languages, it's the same sense of a distinction between a formal address and a familiar address. And so, for example, adults speaking to children could always use the familiar, but children speaking to adults would generally use the formal, unless it's maybe a very close, like an adult, like a child. In some cases, maybe some, subcultures might call their parents thee or the equivalent of thee in these other languages. The two other languages, by the way, are German, which is why English inherited that, and Russian is the other one that I know does that. Now, there may be other languages as well that do that, but those are the two that I actually know a little bit about, and they both do this. They have this distinction between familiar and formal. Now, English used to have this distinction as well, and when we had this distinction, the you, which also happened to be the plural, and I think Russian actually also does this, the plural version of the pronoun is also the formal, even when used in a singular context. And English did this. You is plural, and you is the formal when you're addressing a single person. And then thee was the familiar when you're addressing a single person. And this was fairly common and fairly uniform throughout the English speaking. In fact, sometimes the context itself would make a difference. So, for example, when they're out in public, a woman might address her husband as you, but then when they're at home together, she would address him as thee. Because when they're out in public, she's showing respect as the head of the household and, kind of her place in relation to that. And then at home, it's completely shared and there's an intimacy. And so she reverts to thee. So you can see where I'm going with this. The idea that the preservation of thee, thou, thy somehow is a elevation of formality of language. It's putting yourself into a sort of entering into the court of, maybe a king or something like that. And then therefore you have to observe some kind of higher standard of how you speak to them. That's actually completely backwards. Those pronouns were developed in those traditional prayers as a way of entering into and conveying in the prayer itself an intimacy with the person you were praying to, God or the saints, Mary, whoever.
Well,
Thee has always been the familiar versus the you as the formal in the English language.
What I saw was that, first of all, there were phases of the use of the word. I mean, when in 1300, it was always thee, thou, thy.
It could be at one point that they didn't even, that it was just singular versus plural. I kind of don't think so, though. Because English is a German language, I think that they always had familiar, formal.
They also had familiar and formal, and then they had superior and inferior.
Which is kind of what, like if a superior could always use the formal or the familiar to an inferior, and an inferior would always use the formal addressing a superior.
So, I mean, those two things kind of went hand in hand.
Right. But again, for an inferior to address a superior, they would use you, not thee.
What?
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. It's exactly the opposite of what most people tend to believe.
I got it. Wait a minute. And there's also ye. So,
yeah.
And in some, that's another thing. They're translating the Bibles, and I think the King James Version kept that thee, thou, and then they would, I'm reading, as I read about this, there's between the 1300s to it was around the middle of the 1600s that it kind of started falling out of use. And then by 1700, it's completely out of use. But it had been held on to in
certain circles,
in Bible
like the Society of Friends, and in Bible translations and stuff like that, right?
And that's kind of what I'm looking at, not as opposed to culturally. I mean, we could, other than these tiny little groups of people who use it to sound pretentious, it's limited to prayer and text translations, ancient text translations. And by then, you're using those for a reason when you're translating the text. And sometimes it was to, mostly it was used to just, as we said, bring the dialogue up a level to show that it's, to give it a place of its own, to make it sound old or to make it sound reverent.
I think it's the old part. I think the old part is actually more the case. Not old in the sense of obsolete, but old in the sense of timeless.
Right.
So, but the reason I think it's valuable to understand it as the familiar is because that's what we're invited into with God. That's what, part of Jesus's message was through him to become adopted sons of God, not just servants.
Yeah.
And at one time, Jesus even said, the servant doesn't know what his master's about. I don't call you servants, I call you friends. And so my thinking is that if you take this idea and internalize it, and you say, okay, when I'm praying to God, I'm not, there's a level at which I acknowledge, who God is relative to me. But then there's a level at which I can open myself up and give God my prayers in a way that completely opens me up. It's like, I'm not going to hide anything from God. I'm not going to keep secrets. I'm going to tell God about the things. I may tell God about things I don't even tell my wife. That's the level of intimacy that we're called into in our prayer life with God. And if we take that sense of those pronouns as being a more familiar versus the more formal you, and use those in prayer and internalize that, I think that can help our prayer life and our spirituality.
Yeah. But we still, the way we use those words, thee and thou is still, just because of language the way it is still,
it feels
a formal. Yeah. It's got a formal feel to it. Like a lot of times. It
feels, exactly. That's the point. It feels that way. And it took, that's what was the eye opener for me is that, okay, wait, it feels that way, but I don't have to keep it feeling that way. I can turn it around for myself.
Yeah.
And make it so that, okay, I'm using this language because I'm entering into an intimacy with God or with Mary or whoever.
Well, a couple things about that. First of all, a lot of times when I'm praying silently and I'm kind of in a meditation type of mode, if I'm speaking to God the Father, I will use thee and thou. And if I'm speaking more to Jesus Christ, I will use you and your.
Huh. Interesting.
And it's not something I do on purpose. It's just kind of ends up that way.
A habit you fell into. Yeah, it's kind of, yeah.
But there's also, I want to say this is coming from St. Catherine of Siena. But it might be, I might be way off. It might be like the Little Flower.
Whose feast day, by the way, is today? Did you realize that?
No, I did not.
I don't know. I pray the 1961 office, or 1960, whatever it is. So I don't know if it's that in the current calendar. Yeah, it might have changed. But today is no. I'm wrong. Yesterday was St. Catherine of Siena. Today is a solemnity in the old. They didn't call them solemnities, but the same thing in the old calendar of St. Joseph the Worker. They actually called him, it's kind of funny, in my book it says St. Joseph the Workman.
Friday, third week of Eastertide, or Saint Joseph the Worker.
Bingo.
That's the modern,
right? And the ancient. And yesterday, April 30th, Jeremy's birthday was Saint Catherine of Siena.
Okay. Anyway, there was a dialogue between her and Christ where she was kind of criticizing some of the old nuns around her who were solemn and almost fearful.
Formulaic.
Out of reverence.
I see what you're saying. Right.
And their
their reverence seemed,
And she was talking to Christ about it and saying, "Why can't they see what I see? Why can't they be close to you the way I can?" And he said, "For the majority of people, this is how I am glorified. For a few chosen, you're able to I am glorified through our familiarity. But for most people, that kind of familiarity is not possible. And I personally believe that for the majority of us, that kind of familiarity is more disrespectful than glorifying God. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
I think it turns into something that shouldn't be there. Like,
right. And I don't know. Well, maybe I should.
I'm going to get coffee while you talk.
Okay, go ahead. That's fine. So even while saying that, I should also maybe nuance that a little bit, because that intimacy that I'm talking about is not the same thing as a chumminess, so to speak. It's not the same thing as you would, as like buddies that you josh around with and stuff like that.
Right.
There's still a formalism in even the structure of the prayer, even if you're praying a non-structured prayer, even if it's the kind of thing where you're trying to have a conversation with God and you're making it up as you go along. I mean, not making it up in the sense that that you're trying to manufacture things, but making it up in the sense that you're trying to convey something to God and you're putting it into prayer words. If you're going to put it into words as opposed to just like, say, some kind of contemplation, which contemplative prayer, I don't know. I want to just say it doesn't work for me. I've got to have words there and thoughts there and structure there. And that's the point, is that even if they're words that are not pre-formulated, if I'm formulating them in a style that still kind of expresses this higher directionality of prayer.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's in a sense of intimacy. Think of the idea of the intimacy of a young child to his father, where the father is, authority is absolute, but to the young child, in the young child's eyes, the father's, the reality of the father's care is also absolute. And so the child feels completely open. That's the kind of familiarity I'm talking about.
Okay.
Trying to foster through the use of those pronouns.
Okay.
So that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
But I still feel like the archaic feel that it gives to prayer is a good one. Here's where we come into a problem, though. And this was some of the argument because prayers generally come directly out of the Bible. And
it's especially liturgical prayer.
In translating these ancient texts, there's the fight of using thee and thou in order to give it that more reverent style. But some of the translation can get lost when you do that.
It can. I think some of the translation,
because when you're translating, you're trying to get what the original writers of the Gospels or any of the texts, what the original writers meant to convey, as in the words they meant to convey, and that's where some of the argument came in. Well, we should be using you because that's the word. And maybe in that language, either A, they didn't use that formalized you, or
I think a lot of those
B,
ancient languages they didn't.
There was no formal form of you. It was just you.
Right. That's like Latin, for example. There's no such thing as formal and familiar.
There's no thee and thy. Okay.
I mean, it's just two. And the, that's a good point. And that's one of those things that, I don't envy Bible translators, because they have a hard job. That even making the call of trying to translate, what is said into a modern language and saying, okay, do we translate what was said? Do we translate what was meant? Do we, I'll give you a quick example. Suppose that the, biblical times happened in the English speaking world. Okay. Or some even like before Jesus's time, some, past event, like after, like during the transfer of the tabernacle to Jerusalem or something like that happened in English speaking world. And suppose that the various texts that exist from there talked about, and they say, the people during this time just had a ball. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now you got to now your job as a translator of that into some other language is to translate that. Okay. Do you translate it to that they had and then the noun you use is this spherical bouncy toy object? Do you translate it that they had and the noun they use is like a gala, a dance kind of a thing? Or do you just say they had an awesome time? You see what I mean?
Right.
What's the right way to do it? I don't know that there's necessarily an answer. I think that's part of the value of multiple translations from different people to, kind of give a perspective. Yeah. Oh, okay. Here's what they actually said. Here's what it actually meant, stuff like that. But that's a good point that, when you're translating and then, a simple thing like, okay, how are we going to do pronouns and how are we going to convey those? And within a given language, if the language itself has history, do we use some of the archaic use of that language in order to lend gravity to the thing we're translating, or do we go straight into modern? Or do we say, okay, we'll translate it into aspects of the language only if those aspects have been in use in the language for, I don't know, at least 200 years or something like that. Okay, so like if you're translating the Bible in the 1700s, it's like, well, it wasn't that long ago that people stopped using thee and thou. We're going to use thee and thou. But if you're translating it today, you say, well, people haven't used that forever, so let's just use you, for example. That,
Right.
I kind of wonder how, when they translate it into other languages, are there similar anachronisms and archaic uses that biblical translators are tempted to use and have to decide whether to, like if you translate it into Spanish, not Mexican Spanish, but Spain Spanish, for example. Right. Are there uses in Spain that kind of, if you use it, people think, oh, you must have learned Spanish, 250 years ago.
Yeah. But and part of the development of you is French, because there was there was thou and then there was thou and ye. Mm-hmm. So, and I think ye was plural and thou was singular. And yeah, part of that transition into you was French influence.
You know what? French, this is interesting. French is a Latin language, not a German language, but I think French has or had familiar versus formal in the second person. I don't know that. That's, you know, let me I'm going to Google this real quick. Does French use familiar versus formal? Okay, linguists sometimes use the term honorific to denote polite forms of language like vows more. Tu is often referred to as the familiar form of vous as the formal or polite form. So yes, tu versus vous in French. French has familiar, and tu. French is a Latin language. Tu is the singular you in Latin, and I don't think any of the Latin speaking actually had this concept of familiar versus formal. But vous, or actually not vous, vos, V-O-S, is the plural you. So again, in French and in Russian, I don't know about German, but in French, Russian, and English, all three, to the extent that they use a familiar versus formal, the formal is close to or identical with the plural.
Yeah, and even, I mean, when you would address different monarchies, a lot of times you would use the plural form, not just in you and
true.
But in a lot of different. Whenever you're addressing royalty, you would use plural.
Right.
And when they speak of themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, they would say we, us, yeah. And I think that grew out of a sense, I think that was supposed to be out of a sense of personal humility, in the sense that the kingship is a whole line of kings. And if I'm going to be acting as the king, I have to be doing it. It's not me, the person individually. It's me as a king, which is a succession. And so I refer to us. At least I think that was it. I think I heard that somewhere. I've never researched it. So, hey, if anybody's listening to this and knows otherwise, please post something on our website.
Yeah.
If people post comments, do you see them? I never go to our website. I need to go to our website.
If people do, I do see it. We don't get a lot of comments.
Oh, okay.
And at one time, before we stopped doing this for 6 months, I was kind of looking at the analytics of who was listening to us. Surprisingly, I'd say almost half of the listeners were from California.
That's interesting.
Isn't that kind of weird?
Yeah.
Well, but I don't know if that's because half the people listening are from California, or if it's because there are some kind of bots that originate in California that record as listeners. You know what I mean?
Oh, that could be. Or the third option is that tons of people who do any kind of listening or anything else on the internet just routinely use VPNs, and maybe California has, the lion's share of VPN farms or something like that. I don't use VPNs. Maybe I should. I get annoyed enough. We when the hurricane came and destroyed the Air Force base down on Panama Beach, which our son was there. Well, a local church said, "Hey, we'd like to donate some money. We got this Walmart card for whatever it was. I mean, it was significant. I'm not going to say the amount. We verified the card. We wanted to just check it before we gave it to Jeremy, and they go to try to use it, and it's like, oh, this you can't use it. And we went through every kind. The workers at Walmart couldn't tell us what was wrong with this card that suddenly it couldn't be used. It's like the money had disappeared. And it turned out that our internet service provider, for some reason, the point at which one of their servers put our traffic out onto the internet, it put us in Ontario, Canada.
Huh.
Walmart detected a card balance check from Ontario, Canada, decided somebody had fraudulently obtained the card, locked it down, and we had to go through all kinds of rigmarole to get the money released back to the pastor of this church, who was gracious enough then to provide it in another form, and God bless him for that.
Yeah.
But it was ridiculous. Now, I later learned that the way Walmart did the cards made them very subject to hacking and that kind of stuff, which is why they had such draconian measures regarding the security of it. But it's like, I don't want a VPN. I can just imagine all kinds of trouble.
Like yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the point. Yeah, maybe there's VPN farms in California, and everybody who's listening is using a VPN. I hope it's something like that, or that just people in California like us a lot, and not just bots that show up as listeners. Because I'd like to think that people are actually listening to us.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of I haven't really been. I used to pay for statistics, and I don't do that anymore. So I just kind of get a general. Yeah, you got so many listeners, and but
if that number keeps growing, I'm going to assume that it's because more people are listening, and
it does keep growing little by little. So
all right, good. Getting back on track of recording regularly probably helps.
Yeah.
So. I don't have
anything
anything more to say about the topic. Yeah. Like I said, it'd be a short podcast. We spent a lot of time talking about other stuff.
Yeah. And I got more other stuff. We got some news.
That's right. We do have the news.
Okay, offshore drilling contractor has filed for bankruptcy due to the oil price collapse. And then they announce this, and then they always follow up with following the reduction in oil demand during the global coronavirus pandemic.
Okay.
Which this is so weird to me because it's not a bunch of people got sick. I don't know why we're even still calling it a pandemic.
I know.
A lot of people got sick, but no more than normal for a flu.
For any number of other, the diseases that
I don't know why we're still treating it this way.
It's like, it's like if we had a common cold pandemic or something like that. I don't know.
Right. But there was a reduction in oil demand because I can tell that because I go out on the road and there's less people driving.
Yeah. There's a big, when governors say, governors and then the governments of various other countries issue executive orders saying restaurants have to close. Yeah, there's going to be a reduced demand in oil. There's going to be reduced demand in oil for drivers to drive to those restaurants. There's going to be reduced demand in oil for truckers to deliver supplies to those restaurants, and so forth. But it's not because of the pandemic. It's not because of people getting sick. It's because of governments shutting things down.
Yeah.
It's because of the panic, not the pandemic.
On top of that, Saudi Arabia was trying to drive the price down to harm. I remember before the prices came down, I think it was Rush Limbaugh who was talking about the fact that they were doing this and that very soon the oil prices would drop. This is at the very beginning. This is when no one realized that the governors were going to shut down their states.
Right.
And he said back then, the oil prices are going to come down, and this is Saudi Arabia a move against Russia.
Mm-hmm.
You've got those two things happening at the same time, and that's why gas is $1.50. You brought that up.
I was going to say, I filled my tank this evening. I put 10 gallons in my tank for $6.
Yeah, wow.
It was at Kroger, and the price was already down to $1.59, and I had a $1, a gallon gas credit at Kroger. $6 for 10 gallons. I haven't done that. Gas prices were higher than that when I first started driving.
Yeah. You got to start thinking about, I mean, it seems good because we're driving around and it's costing almost nothing. But this is going to make all kinds of prices come down. But it's also going to push people out of business.
Yeah.
And you got to think this can't be good.
No.
I mean, I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, good, stick it to the oil companies. But
you're not really. It's not like the oil companies are like just kind of out there sucking, I don't know, money from people or whatever. And if you stick it to them, everything's fine. No, it's all part of a connected economy.
They provide a thing, and we need that thing.
Yeah.
And we need it for every little aspect in our lives.
Anymore. Right.
So if American companies go out of business and then our supply returns to normal and our demand returns to normal, actually our supply won't return to normal. Our demand returns to normal, but our supply is so low. Guess what's going to happen?
Yeah,
we're going to be paying $10 a gallon.
Right. It's not. Yeah. Well, fortunately, Indiana is on a track to open things back up, open the economy back up. I know a lot of other states have extended it to like towards the end of May and stuff, but Indiana is on a track where things are going to start opening back up on May 4th, Monday.
Yeah, we're supposed to start on May 1st, last I heard, but I kind of stopped listening. Our governor DeWine is...
I think he extended it.
I don't know
to the
how
29th.
far his head went up his rear end, but he's done such a terrible job dealing with this, and other governors did a really good job. South Dakota did a really good job, and she didn't put restrictions on everyone. And I have a feeling their economy's going to be just roaring in comparison with ours.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine why Mike DeWine. I don't know. I sure hope people don't elect him after this. Well, he's proven how bad he is.
Yeah. Well,
but on the other hand, people still, even after all these numbers came in and we can see the extent of this disease and how it behaves and how many people are going to be affected about this, I still see tons of people out there with their masks on, maintaining social distance. And
yeah.
Here's the weird thing. It's kind of changed the way I behave in public. As I said last week, I love social distance. I can't stand being around people. And all of a sudden,
it's like everybody's giving you wide berth now.
Yeah, but like, I guess it's just instinctively I am against any kind of conformity. And so
now it's like, okay, everybody's far away. I'm going to get close to people.
I feel emboldened, and I'm like in your face, like someone's in the grocery store with their mask on, looking in an aisle, and I'll just go stand right next to them.
Right next to them,
yeah, and be like, and it's ticking everyone off who's around me, because I just suddenly feel like I'm just not going to conform to this. And so I'm walking through the grocery store. I like purposely step close to people and watch them react in horror and run away. And it's such a weird thing that's happening.
Yeah, that's really weird. I was thinking, we've got there was the toilet paper shortage now, and then there's the cleaner and sanitizer shortage. Now there's a coming meat shortage. Somebody floated. I think the pop companies just kind of floated this, and it's not real. But somebody floated that there's going to be an aluminum shortage. So, and I was just chuckling this morning about, and Terry said, "What are you laughing at?" I just said all these shortages that are coming because of the stupid virus panic. It's going to be like, we're going to be like, I just have this vision of people living in the woods and sleeping in trees and using blowguns to kill their, food, their, vermin, rabbits and squirrels and stuff, and wiping their butts with leaves, but they don't have the coronavirus.
Yeah.
It's like, at some point, it's no longer worth it, guys. Just live. So, yeah, I
don't know. Well, Delta Airlines is also headed for, they've suspended some of their flights to the smaller hubs because they lost over $500 million in the first quarter of this year due to all the restrictions.
Wow.
So the airlines, I think, are going to take a serious hit.
All the travel companies, both entertainment and business travel.
I think people, when they see these industries losing money, they need to stop thinking about that as an industry. They need to think about that as jobs.
As jobs. Yeah, exactly.
This is how our country survives. This is how people feed their families. It's so crazy, and it's like we gave ourselves.
They think that if people have this idea that if Delta loses, $500 million, they have this concept that, the CEO and president of Delta together each, end up losing $250 million out of pockets that each consist of $3 billion or something stupid like that.
And
they don't realize that what it means is that people don't work and they get laid off and they lose jobs and think of Cincinnati Airport that's a big Delta hub, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if Delta's not flying as much through there, there's fewer airport employees too. It's not just Delta, it's connected.
The CEOs are not going to lose money. They're not going to suffer for this. The people who are going to suffer are all the way from blue collar to middle class. Those are the people who are losing their jobs. Those are the people who take this hit. You're not sticking it to the man.
No.
The little guy is the one who gets hurt. And I don't know, I can't imagine this current group of politicians being elected again. If I had 2 cents to my name, I would either back someone up who was running against these people or run against them myself, and just point out the fact that they've been lousy. It's they personally who destroyed these jobs. Mike DeWine ruined the lives of thousands of people in Ohio.
Ohioans. Yep.
It's him personally. His advisors didn't do it. He did it.
Right. That's the thing that at some point, are we going to, when we look back at this 2 years from now, are we going to recognize what really happened?
I kind of don't think we will.
I think there's a lot of people who won't.
The way I'm seeing everybody wear their masks, young people who have no reason to fear the disease.
Well, first of all, do you realize, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, the masks will not protect you from getting the virus.
Right.
And they're not meant to protect you from getting the virus. The CDC's recommendation for wearing masks is to prevent you from spreading the virus.
Right.
Because it's contracted through contact with surfaces, but it's spread through your breath. So the virus doesn't keep you from getting it, it keeps you from spreading it. So if you're wearing a mask, the reason you're doing so is that, maybe you have the virus and you don't know it. And it's so possible, here's the irony here, it's so possible for so many people to have this virus without even knowing it, without exhibiting any symptoms.
98%.
We need everybody to wear masks. Okay, wait a minute. If it's that many people will never have symptoms anyway, then why is it such a it's kind of like there's this weird irony of, okay, what you just kind of undercut your own, So, but the other thing is, I see all these people wearing masks, and I just gotta laugh. It's like, well, what are you doing anyway? Just take the mask off, because they wear it over their mouth, but not over their nose.
Yeah, there's that, and then they do weird things, like, Kroger's got these bags over the little credit card machines that everybody's touching.
The plastic bags. It's like,
and
I
guess
put the bag
maybe
over
they
there.
wipe them bags down
like,
every now and then. I don't know.
Yeah, once in a while I think I see someone reach out with a sanitizer, but it's not like they do it for every customer or anything like that. It's like, okay,
I don't even use the bags. I move the bag out of the way because I can't see the dang thing.
Yeah. You're the only one who's not going to pick it up then.
Yeah.
Or like people use gloves, and it's like they touch, they're using the gloves. Terry saw somebody with gloves on, and actually Terry's taking precautions. She'll put gloves on, she'll do the sanitizer and stuff like that, but she's not going to live in fear. She goes out and does stuff. So she saw somebody had gloves on. They're going around, their gloves. The gloves are touching things. It's like, okay, why are you wearing those gloves? Well, to protect me so I don't get the virus on my fingers and then give it to myself. The person's phone rings, and they can't get it to work through the glove. So what do? They use their teeth to pull the glove off to answer the phone.
You see such weird behavior that I don't know. I'm just gonna...
because it's like people are doing it in order to be part of the crowd rather than because they actually believe the threat.
Right. And they like post Facebook posts about how clean they are and they're sanctimonious about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, look how it's like replaced morality,
Yeah. Yeah,
I wiped down my car before I got in.
Here's how clean I am.
Yeah,
it's like they
everybody
take that stupid old English statement, "Cleanliness is close to godliness," and take it seriously.
They really think they're godly.
Yeah,
idiots. Oh well. A court in Vietnam sentenced a man to 1.5 years in jail for posting anti-government content on Facebook.
Wow.
I was kind of surprised that was in the news, but...
You know what? I don't really... Yeah, but I don't know anything about Vietnam. But, well, I mean, I would expect that in, a place like China, for example.
Well, let's face it. North Vietnam won the war, and communism took over there. I don't know what they are now, but it looks to me like they must be still communist. They still must be a dictatorship.
Yeah, that's... I mean, if you go to jail for posting anti-government stuff, it's a dictatorship.
Just...
Which, by the way, all you people who want to call Trump a dictator, you ever notice how you're not in jail?
Yeah. Many people who talk smack about him, and no one's in jail over it.
Yeah. Some dictator.
See if you get that in China or Vietnam.
That's right.
Or North Korea. Let's see. Okay, so the theater chain AMC Theatres will no longer host movies produced by Universal Studios.
Uh-oh.
Because Universal is going to release its movies both in cinemas and streaming format at the same time. In other words, there won't be that little thing where you go to the theater first.
You know what? That's so stupid. First of all, that's fine. Other than the fact that the stupid coronavirus panic has me unable to use it, I actually bought one of those like unlimited movies cards, but not for AMC. I bought it for Regal. I love just going to movies. I don't know about you. To me, I love being in a theater watching movies. And it's been that way since I was a little kid. It was one of the favorite things to do. If I could talk Dad into taking us to a movie on a Sunday afternoon, that just made my week. And I still like that. So I bought one of those cards, and it's like, well, okay, now I haven't had a chance to use it yet. Hopefully Regal will continue to show Universal movies. But the thing is, people who like to go to movies like to go to movies.
Yeah.
And the people who prefer to stay at home and watch it will wait.
Right. I will.
I don't really think, and especially with certain kinds of movies, like, once in a while you'll have this special, like a franchise, big built-up expectation, like, the next Star Wars movie or something like that, and you'll get a certain number of people who, okay, generally I don't go to movies, but this is Star Wars, so I'm going to, as soon as it's out, I have to see it, so I'm going to go to the movie. Okay, but most movies aren't like that. Let's face it, not everything's a blockbuster like that. So
the last movie I went to was the digital revision of Star Wars. I got free tickets I won something at work, and
the original one?
We're going to go see the new version of Star Wars where they added some stuff, and that's the last time I went to the movies.
Did you see the original in its original release?
I don't think so, because that was in 70. What? I would have been a couple years old.
Was it 74? Okay, you were too young. I saw it. Kathy saw it with me. It was Kathy, me, Dad, and Uncle Jake.
But I do remember seeing it at a drive-in theater.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
And I thought that was just the most awesome thing ever.
Yeah.
Why don't we have drive-in theaters anymore?
We do. We've got several here in India. I've got several within driving distance. Yeah. There's one. There's one in Shelbyville where I used to live, and
I wouldn't mind going to do that.
And the thing is, drive-ins are so cool these days, because you remember how the old drive-ins. You remember at the drive-in that they turned into the flea market on Ferguson up there, and Dad used to always do the flea market thing, but they had the drive-in things and those posts where the cars pulled in, and they had the post, and you pulled the speaker into your car, and those speakers were awful. They were tinny, stuff like that. Today, you go to a drive-in, what they do is they broadcast the audio on an FM channel, and you just turn your car on accessory mode. You got to make sure you don't turn your headlights on, because it honks people off, of course.
Yeah.
Just turn your car on accessory mode and listen to the movie on your radio while you're watching it. And you've got people that turn them up real loud and stuff like that.
Does the time sync okay?
Open your doors and stuff. What's that?
Does it sync okay?
Yeah, perfectly. It's awesome.
Huh. Okay. Yeah.
And,
so
it is a really cool experience. And then what they'll do is, between the movie, because drive-ins are always a double feature. So between the movies, what they'll do is they'll say, okay, everybody, go ahead and start your cars for a few minutes to keep your batteries going. Right. And then we'll go ahead and start the next movie. And then, you've got those people who still, their batteries drain by the end of the second movie, and so they'll have a service that comes around and starts jumping people's cars for them so they can leave. But I mean, it is a different. I mean, it's the same, because it's drive-in. You get to sit out. You open your cars, your seats and stuff like that. But
I think I'd probably go to a drive-in.
They do it better now.
Those around here.
Yeah,
but I hate movies.
We'll have to find. I think there's. I'll have to find out if there's one that, what, Shelbyville is kind of like, it's not halfway, it's mostly towards me, a little bit towards you, but anyway, the Shelbyville Drive-In, it's called the Skyline, by the way. If they're ever showing a cool set of movies, maybe we could meet with, you could bring any of your kids that want to come, and I can take any of my kids that want to come.
The main thing is, I don't want to stop in the middle of it. Look, I like to smoke while I'm watching something.
Oh. I wonder, you might even be allowed to smoke.
I can't imagine why not. Hell, I'll roll the windows
up. That's another cool thing. Yeah, you're outside. You're outside. The only thing is, you got to remember to bring mosquito spray.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. So anyway, let's make a point of that sometime.
Yeah.
So, how did we get onto drive-in movies? Oh, AMC Universal. That's right. Okay. So what else in the news?
Let's see. The Asteroid OR2 made a close approach 6.3 million miles to Earth. It will not approach any closer than that until 2079. It's so weird how they can predict the track of an asteroid, something as insignificant as that.
What was the name of it? OS2? OR2?
OR2. 1998 OR2. I don't know why it's 1998 OR2.
To safely fly past Earth this week. It's not going to be visible to the naked eye, though, is it?
No, probably not. No, I don't think so. Even if it was, it wouldn't be as exciting as like a comet with a long tail or anything.
Right.
I'm waiting for a comet to come that was as good as Hale-Bopp.
Hale-Bopp? Yeah,
that was such a neat comet.
I know. That was the one that had that double tail, right?
Yeah, but you couldn't see the double. Most of them have a double tail, but you couldn't see it on it with the naked eye.
Right. I used binoculars and I was able to see it.
Were you?
Just faintly. Yeah.
See, I wasn't really into that kind of stuff back when that was in the sky. I just remember looking up and wow, look at that, a comet.
I know. It is just kind of like hanging there. You know, it's like...
And you could see it in the city.
Freaky. It would be less freaky if it was like... Because people imagine a comet as... Until they've actually seen one, as a flyby. Right? But it isn't. It's like, it's just hanging there, and it's got this tail, and it's just, you know, it is a really cool thing to see. It's, you know.
Yeah. So, that's the one where all those people killed themselves, remember?
Hale-Bopp? Yeah, the Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
They believed if they killed themselves and had
get a ride,
I don't know,
on the
$1.75 in their pockets or something like that, the spaceship would take them up to...
That's terrible. That people get.
You know, I have to go back and research them because it's like I gotta think that there was somebody behind that somehow was benefiting from something or other. There's no way that a guy charismatic enough to convince people to do that was also himself delusional enough to believe it.
Yeah, it's sad.
It's weird.
I don't know. Well, didn't
especially the
Jonestown,
money in the
didn't
pocket
he also
thing.
kill himself?
Did he kill himself? I thought he killed himself because he knew that, that you know, they were coming for him. But
and a whole bunch of other people were, I mean...
That was a freaky place. They used to, like, hang kids over the wells to terrify them into submission and obedience and stuff.
Yeah.
That was a bad place. That,
how do people get into those situations?
Those kinds of, cults and stuff. Man.
The 2020 tornado season is considered the deadliest since 2011. This season.
Oh.
So
when does tornado season start and end?
I have no idea. But it includes the Easter tornadoes. This season does. And
did you ever see the movie? You know, it's kind of interesting. We got tornadoes. We've had a few earthquakes. We've got coronavirus, sort of, kind of. We've got coronavirus panic. People might be tempted to think we're in end times. But did you ever see the movie Tucker and Dale? Is it Tucker and Dale or Dale and Tucker versus Evil?
No, I never
okay,
saw it. I can't.
First of all, do you like horror movies? Like, would you sit down and watch, say, Friday the 13th?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay. You probably wouldn't like this. This is a super campy horror movie. It is hilarious. And spoiler alert, people who might be wanting to see it. So in the movie, I guess it's not that much of a spoiler. There's these two hillbillies, Tucker and Dale, and they're doing their thing, and there's these kids that are interpreting the stuff they do in this, like, weird kind of way, and that causes the kids to do things that end up getting themselves killed. Okay. Like, for example, there, in one of the scenes, he's using a chainsaw to try to cut wood. The wood he cuts into has a hornet's nest inside. Suddenly the hornets are swarming around him, and he's trying to wave them away, but he's got the chainsaw running. And so the kid who's watching this thinks that the guy is chasing him with the chainsaw. So the kid's running from him, and the other guy's waving the chainsaw around because of the hornets, trying to get away from the hornets and running. And the kid himself ends up, like, running into a branch that's hanging and impales himself and dies. that kind of stuff. Okay, that sort of campiness. I've got this like vision, this not a serious vision, but this sort of like humorous kind of, you know, where things are going kind of vision of a similar kind of like all of society is like these kids that are like reacting incorrectly to the circumstances.
Yeah.
For the coronavirus. The coronavirus is Tucker and Dale, basically. I mean, okay, I don't want anyone to hear me say that it's harmless, but, you know, it's not what everybody imagines it to be.
Right.
And we end up destroying ourselves completely because of a misinterpretation of what the thing really is. It just occurred to me while we were talking. It just occurred to me while we were talking that Dale and Tucker versus Evil could be a metaphor for our handling of the coronavirus.
Yeah, I might watch it.
Yeah, it's super campy, but you know, it's funny. It's funny, and I can never remember whether it's Dale and Tucker or Tucker and Dale.
I don't even recognize the name, so I don't know. The government of Sudan criminalized female genital mutilation. That kind of surprised me.
That surprises me too. So Sudan, I thought that was a Muslim country.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's mostly Muslim country. I didn't know. I guess
I thought it was an
officially
Muslim
Sharia
country. Law.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good.
I don't know.
Let's see more.
NASA has officially selected SpaceX.
Oh.
And Blue Origin and Dynetics to build its lunar lander.
Awesome. So we're going to build a new lunar lander. Is it going to be a manned lunar lander or a robotic one? A drone?
American astronauts to the moon by 2024.
Nice.
I guess Trump wants this under his belt. So he's saying instead of 10 years, you're going to do it in 4 years. And, of course, we have to get the first woman to the moon and whatever.
Oh, okay. That's fine. But you know what? The thing is, okay, people think of it as largely symbolic. Okay, taking a person to the moon and that kind of stuff. But when you think of space and the space, you know, aspect of exploration and that kind of stuff, as we develop the technologies for increasing presence on the moon, on planets like Mars, on asteroids maybe, and stuff like that, there's going to be real commercial impact to how this stuff develops. And being out there in front is going to be very important for America, because if we're not in front, the ones who are going to be in front is China. I could not hear. You did not even have to say that. Now, they've got my laugh. You know what? You don't even have to fill that back in, because I'm not going to say what it is you just said. Yeah, you had to step away from the computer. So everybody who hears me laughing in this strange silence on the other end, he had to step away from the computer. It depends on the circumstances. Like, so in the morning, I drink my pot of coffee, and it's like, okay, got my pot of coffee, good, and now I'm gonna switch to water, and I drink a teaspoon of water, and all of that coffee turns into urine.
I'm back. By the way. Okay, so...
Okay, I guess everybody just realized what you had to go do. A
teaspoon of water?
What's that?
You drink a teaspoon of water?
No, I don't drink a teaspoon of water. My point is, after my first sip of water, all the coffee turns into urine.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I'm not even that old, but I swear I get up 3 times every night. I can't even get through a night's sleep. I get up at least 3 times to use the men's room, and I can't make it through anything without. I go on a trip, it's terrible. I got to stop at every rest area I see anymore.
I've actually been doing better in the afternoons. The more, and I think the reason is because I've shifted my coffee drinking to a very high concentration in the morning, and then I start drinking water, and then I go a bunch. It's like, honestly, if I finish my coffee by 10 and I start drinking water, it might be 15 minutes between times having to go to the bathroom a few times. But then when the afternoon comes, for the first time in my life, and I mean the first time, in the last 5 years of my life, I'm able to sit through an hour and a half meeting without having to excuse myself and get up and go. It used to be that if a meeting ran more than an hour, it's like, forget it, guys, I'll be back. Yeah. And it was kind of embarrassing because nobody else seemed to need to do that. It's like, well, and I'm sure everybody's thinking, couldn't you do that before you came? Well, I did do it before I came to the meeting.
Yeah. I told you to go before we got in the car.
Exactly. Like my kids, it's like, or, like there's one of my kids that no matter what, when it comes, maybe it's actually programmed. Maybe it's like he just doesn't care to listen to people preach. Comes time for the homily, he has to get up, go to the bathroom at Mass.
Oh, yeah. I remember as a kid, a bathroom trip just makes the Mass seem shorter. And it just breaks up that long agonizing hour that you have to sit there.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Anyway.
That's it for the news.
Okay. All right. Well, that's kind of cool. My first news is actually about NASA, sort of. I've got some news from the Nation of Nonsense. And there was a mysterious package attached to a bright red parachute set off a bomb scare. This is trying to figure out where this occurred. South Brunswick. South Brunswick, what state? I mean, is that Brunswick, Georgia? Anyway, they don't really say. In South Brunswick, a package with a red parachute set off a scare. It turns out it was a NASA experimental balloon. So that's kind of fun. Now, my next 4, predictably, or my next 3 rather, predictably, are all, no, let's say 4, are all about the coronavirus in a sense. The first one is just, this is so stupid. So there's a guy, a news anchor in Spain, he was broadcasting from home, and there's like so much wrong with this whole story. But he was broadcasting from home because, of course, they can't go into the studio to broadcast. And people noticed behind him on his broadcast, I guess he was just using his computer, a half-naked woman walking across the room behind him, who wasn't the woman that he was supposed to be with. Now, the thing is, they called it cheating. Well, he wasn't really married or anything. He had a girlfriend at the time who says that she was supposed to still be his girlfriend, but it's kind of one of these, like high school drama things. Well, yeah, he hadn't broken up with me yet, blah, blah, blah. The woman herself turned out to be another newswoman. So I guess high school drama plays out in the media. They're still kind of stuck in that mode over in Spain. That's the nonsense.
So did he get dumped?
I don't know. Is it dumped? He kind of apologized for people. Oh, I didn't mean to, for anybody to get hurt. He says they had already broken up. His girlfriend says, no, we hadn't broken up at that time.
But that would be his coworker that was there with him?
Not coworker, but another newswoman.
Oh,
well, actually, maybe she was his coworker. And
well, maybe it was just what's half naked. I mean, is that did she lack a shirt, or was it just skimpy clothes? Maybe she was just there working.
Skimpy clothes. It's kind of blurry because I mean it's focused on him, and she's just kind of like in the like he's the main screen, and then she's this little on a full screen. She might be like a little 2-inch figure, like way in the background. So it's hard to even tell. But it's definitely a woman. That's all you can really tell. I mean, she could be, I don't know. She could be naked. She could be half naked. It looks kind of like she's maybe wearing a bikini or something. I don't know.
Okay.
It's hard
so
to
it's
tell.
Not someone who was there to work with him and
was naked. Yeah, it doesn't look like it.
Didn't happen to wear many clothes.
No, I think she was. He was. They were carrying on. His girlfriend says, "Oh no, we weren't broken up yet." So my only point is, the stupid nonsense. I guess high school drama happens in the Spanish news media industry.
Yeah.
You know what? It probably happens in the American news industry too.
Yeah, probably.
So I shouldn't be calling out Spain so bad. Okay. Next, this is just kind of, I don't know. So in Paris, apparently, with the shutdown, people are having trouble getting a hold of their drugs. And I don't mean prescription. So criminal gangs are using fast food couriers to deliver recreational drugs to people who are confined at home. I think this is a bigger issue than people might realize. I don't know this for certain, but along with the fact that Trump is really putting the screws on these drug cartels. Yep.
With everything being shut down, it is making drug pushers or drug mules and stuff. It's making it harder for them to move the product.
Right.
And it's not something you really think about, but we have a huge population of heroin users in America.
Yeah.
And they're probably having a harder time getting their drug right now. And I wonder if places like rehab centers are prepared to take on a higher number of people
who
to
are
deal with the fact
that
that people are maybe quitting but they can't just quit. They're going to end up spending whatever money they have and paying a higher price for. I don't know if the prices have gone up or not, but I imagine they would.
That would be an interesting.
This is kind of a problem that maybe somebody should look into.
Well, I'm thinking this is like a great opportunity for some either economics or sociology graduate students out there to do their master's thesis on exactly this. I mean, that is an interesting aspect, and it is a real problem.
I don't know any actual druggies, or at least I don't talk to any druggies right now, so I don't know. But I have to wonder if prices have gone up.
I have to think that they have. Yeah, this is that's a good point. This is one of those things. All right. So, in India, okay, so you know how if you've got a rabid dog, what do? You put them down, you shoot them, okay?
Yeah.
Like loose in the neighborhood or something like that. What are the police going to do? They're going to bring a sniper out and shoot the dog. But if it's not rabid, if it's just a dog that is, not acting dangerous or strange, they don't necessarily want to shoot them. But the dog catcher might need to catch them. And so what do they have? They've got certain loops they can slip around their neck and catch them and get them into the truck and take them to the kennel, and then they can start working on them and stuff like that. Yeah. Well, in India, the police are so panicked about the coronavirus that they have developed devices for the purpose of maintaining social distance while apprehending the people who violate the coronavirus stay-at-home restrictions.
What?
Yeah.
So they have like people nooses that they
noose might not be the right word, but basically it's like, okay, we've got this long pole. It's going to have this hook around the end that can grab you around the waist, and then we can control you from a distance. It's so stupid.
The whole world is going crazy.
Exactly.
I wonder if, like, 30 years from now, there's going to be, like, they're going to talk about this era. Like, the whole world just went crazy, and there were, like, there were some voices of dissension. There were a couple podcasts out there.
Yeah, that talked about how stupid all this stuff was, but...
But nobody listened to him. Jeez.
That's okay. So, and then the last one is, I guess, kind of along those lines, and it's even more stupid. German police are having a nice time busting black market hair salons. Yeah, like black market
hair salons. Wow.
Because you're not allowed to have your hair done during the coronavirus.
Yeah. Underground hair salons.
Underground hair salons are being busted by German police.
Jeez.
So, our sister does hair. Watch out. Don't get caught.
If I were a hairstylist, I would be doing that. I would set up shop
totally.
somewhere.
It's like, okay, guys, just give me a call. The password is swordfish.
Yeah. It's so weird. All this stuff is so weird to me.
It's so stupid. Yeah, I mean, it's stupid, and it's weird to think that people who are the ones who are kind of in charge with order in society can be that stupid.
Right. It's scary because, well, that's the thing. That's what I end up thinking. On the one hand, nobody could be that stupid. If you're making these rules and you're doing these things, there's got to be some other agenda here.
Yeah.
Mike DeWine can't be that dumb.
Yeah.
Cuomo can't be. Well, Cuomo might be a little bit of a different story because he, despite the fact that there's so many people coming down with it, he keeps packing everyone into these subways and stuff like that. But for the vast majority of America, it's just is not that big of a deal. And our governors are shutting their own. It's like they're shooting themselves in the foot. And if you're doing that, from the very beginning, I thought this is a way to destroy the economy so that they can keep Trump from being reelected. That's what I originally thought.
That's almost what it feels like, But
and then I started thinking, but I'm walking around and I'm seeing the fear in these people's eyes when I get too close to them and they run away from me. And
right.
That's real fear. These people really believe it.
Yeah. But what the thing is this. I went to a Lowe's a couple weeks ago. I needed to pick up some blocks for some landscaping stuff. So I'm in the garden area, and the way this Lowe's is organized, and I think most Lowe's are like this, they've got the main store, and then they've got the garden area outside.
Yeah.
And there's a couple doors that go between the store and the garden area. You can go between, wander between.
Yeah.
Well, I found where the blocks were, and it's like, okay, I start putting the blocks on my cart, and I think, all right, I want to do this with gloves. I forgot to bring my own gloves with me, so I'm going to go get a cheap pair of gloves and use those, and then just pay for them on my way out. In response to coronavirus, they closed the doors between the garden area and the store. So now, instead of walking through one door, now I have to go out of the garden area entrance, passing a bunch of people and a bunch of surfaces to breathe on, all the way to the main doors of the store, passing another bunch of people that are gathered there, back along the store to where the garden area is, because it's just on the other side of that wall, grab the gloves, and then go back, go through the checkout line to pay for the gloves because I can't just walk out of the store with them.
Yeah.
Pass all those other people that are still around, hanging around the main entrance, back into the garden area. And it occurred to me that the people who are setting up these systems in response to the coronavirus threat, they don't believe the coronavirus threat. Because if they did, they would be setting up different systems. Right. It kind of reminds me, do you remember how when the airline, when cell phones first started becoming sort of ubiquitous, and then airlines had this policies, everybody has to have their cell phones off during the flight.
Yeah, because it was going to bring down the airplane, even though that had never happened.
Well, not only had never happened, but here's the thing. What do you think would be the policy regarding cell phones if any actual airline person in charge actually believed that it was possible to interfere with the airplane electronics with a cell phone? They wouldn't have a policy.
To have them.
Exactly. Not in your pocket, not in your carry-on luggage, not even in your checked luggage.
Right.
And
it's just so there to make everybody
it was obvious
think.
Nobody actually believed that the cell phones could bring down an airplane. At least nobody who was in charge of those policies. This coronavirus stuff is the same way.
Yeah. Remember you couldn't have a cell phone at a gas pump?
Yeah. Because people thought your cell phone, I don't know, some kind of weird sparking would ignite the gas, something stupid like that. Yeah,
they had all kind of, and you see that kind of thinking in a lot of different places. Like, okay, the fear that of global warming and the rising waters. People who claim that this is happening are still buying beachfront properties.
Oh.
And they say this is going to happen in 10 years. But yet they're spending millions of dollars on beachfront properties. It's like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
That you're going to be underwater soon. And they don't believe it.
What you ought to be spending money on is the slums that are, 2 miles inward of beachfront properties. If you really believe that, that's what you'd be buying because those are going to be the beachfront properties when all this happens.
Right. But they know it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Boy,
yeah,
this was going to be a short podcast, and it's almost 2 hours long.
Yeah, making people think that they're safe, but okay, we'll wrap it up here.
I don't have any more news items.
Okay, well, folks, think about what we said and
circle the beads.
Circle the beads, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah,
we need a
lot
of prayers.